Hi, friends. Welcome to Pure Health Exchange's CEO Coffee Chat. I'm so glad that both of you decided to join us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invitation. Excited to be in conversation with you both today.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so for our friends out there, this is Power to the Young People. This coffee chat is going to be about youth civic engagement and education. I am Dr. Angela Glenn. I am the CEO of Pure Health Exchange. I use she, her pronouns. I am really excited to be joined by these two amazing leaders in their respective roles and work. We have Allyson Cook joining us today. Allyson uses she, her pronouns. Allyson is an educational leader with over 13 years of experience dedicated to enhancing equity and access in the American education system. As the national program team leader at Generation Citizen, hey, Generation Citizen, she oversees the scaling of an innovative, equity-centered curriculum, teacher training, and coaching supports. Her career is marked by a commitment to empowering scholars, developing 21st century skills, so important, and providing access to high quality educational and professional opportunities. Thank you, Allyson, for joining us today. And we have Damari Creque. Thank you, Damari, for joining us. Damari uses he, she, they pronouns. As an education policy specialist and researcher, Damari has worked tirelessly to ensure that all students have access to the opportunities they need to thrive. Damari currently works at America Forward. Hey, America Forward family, an initiative of New Profit, managing their education policy work, including their whole learner education initiative, and interacting with federal lawmakers and presidential administration staff to ensure that federal education policies support the breadth of skills students need to be successful. Welcome, Damari. Thank you for joining us.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you
so
for
we're
having me.
absolutely. Well, we have lots of important and timely conversation to have today. We also want to make sure that we are centering what's on the minds and hearts of our young people as it pertains to their civic engagement and advocacy. So we definitely going to want to dig in there. But to get started, I just want the audience that's out here listening and the audience who will see the recording to know that this is a very important topic for Pure Health Exchange. Many of you know that we provide health education resources and tools for adolescents to basically make decisions on how to improve their health. And we do that in schools, we do it online. We also work with about 55 young people across the nation, and they are engaging with us inside our bubble and outside to make sure that health equity is there for all of their peers. And so they have, because of the political climate we're in, we have an important presidential election that's coming up soon. They have really been expressing a desire to understand how they can be better civic participants in their communities. And so they have really been fired up on how they can advocate for better education, better health education specifically for themselves and for peers like them in their communities. So this is really top of mind for us as an organization, but also for the young people we serve. So getting into that, I want to start with the first question, which is, how would you two define youth civic engagement? What comes up for you when you hear that?
Such a great question, and I'll take a few minutes just to start us off and then pass it over to Damari. But what we know is a healthy democracy begins with an affirmation of our belonging, and it's only possible through an equitable, inclusive society. As Dr. Martin Luther King knew, true democracy is not just what's on paper, it's actually in our actions. So youth civic engagement is engaging the wisdom of the entire community in problem solving, in addition to voting in elections. This is at the heart of what we do at Generation Citizen. And for about 15 years, we've really sought to build an education movement that actually equips young people to strengthen democracy through hands-on civics education and experiencing being civically engaged in real time.
Awesome. That's really great. And I love to hear that definition about civic engagement and the equity that's embedded in it. So before I get started, I want to kind of give a brief overview of New Profit and America Forward, because America Forward is the policy initiative of New Profit, which is a venture philanthropy fund that focuses on empowering proximate leaders and social entrepreneurs with the capital that they need to impact the communities that they desire to serve. So that's where civic engagement comes in for the New Profit arm. We really want to make sure that we're empowering social entrepreneurs and proximate leaders in the communities, especially our youth, with the money and the training that they need to make sure that their organizations can be successful, the outcomes that they want to have in their communities will be effective, and that they're able to advocate for themselves in the policy and advocacy spaces. And then America Forward takes that goal of New Profit and takes it a bit further by encouraging our youth and our other social entrepreneurs and others in the organization to take advantage of national service opportunities, such as the ones offered through City Year and Teach for America, so that they're able to use national service dollars and AmeriCorps funding to impact their communities, that they're able to really engage with the communities in a thoughtful and impactful way.
Damari, I lost some audio. I don't know if that's true for you.
I
You're
Now
back.
you're back. I
okay,
can hear you.
awesome. Yeah, so really and truly, just at America Forward and New Profit, our civic engagement is focused on empowering proximate leaders, empowering social entrepreneurs, and then encouraging people to take advantage of national service opportunities across the country.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm going to direct this question to you, Allyson, but before we get into it, I know the work that you do and your organization, Generation Citizen, is just making sure that young people are getting civic education so that they can be the most productive and powerful, civic minded folks in society. But before we get into that question that I have specifically for you, Allyson, I want to ask us all: how many of us got civics education in school?
I have this conversation all the time with folks in my personal community. I did not have access to a comprehensive civics education experience in my K through 12 experience at all. And I just actually got off a conversation with another curriculum designer today where we were talking about how social studies and civics education is sometimes an afterthought in school districts at a state level. And so we're continuing to engage in meaningful conversations from a program development lens around how do we actually preserve access to civics education. And that's what another arm of Generation Citizen really leans into. We have a policy and advocacy team that really is focusing on changing policy at the state and federal level to really preserve access to civics education.
Wow, that is so ironic. So it definitely makes sense why you do what you do. Damari, you said somewhat. You want to share a little bit of insight about your civics education?
Yeah, sure. So a little bit of background about me. I'm originally from St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. So I was born and raised there and went through my K through 12 educational journey there. Excuse me. Our civics education was a little bit less formal, but we had some very informal methods for participating in civic engagements. At every school I went to, they encouraged us to volunteer with organizations that were dear to us and would help to meet the needs of community members. So we had to do that as a graduation requirement, especially in high school. We had to log about 200 hours for the 4 years that we were in high school. And then they also encouraged us to engage with politicians and other local elections to make sure that we were able to make our voices heard, even though we weren't of voting age. And they would actually hold kind of like mock elections for us in the school, which would actually be very close to the outcomes of the actual election when they actually held the real elections. So from an early age, we were
Mm.
taught to really be engaged civically and to really beef up our communities in the ways that we thought would be helpful. It's one of the reasons why I do the work I do today and why I see the benefits of having like a whole learner approach to education and
Yes.
the whole child approach to education being possible in schools, because I've seen it happen in the Virgin Islands. I've seen it happen in my communities, and I know it's something that can be replicated across all states in the US.
Wow, that's amazing. So I actually did get in my view, I think I did get a decent civics education growing up in South Carolina. So I'm a Generation Xer. So I don't know if this is like generational, but I do feel like I got a really solid introduction in my social studies courses, like in elementary school. And then I think I feel like that did continue for me through middle school, high school, at least then in South Carolina, civics was mandated. It was a graduation requirement. So I actually took a course. Shout out to Mr. Benton, my 12th grade civics teacher. But I did take a course, and it was a requirement, a required course to graduate when I was in school. Now, health education, that's a different story. So that's why I do what I do. But I do feel like civics was pretty decent for me. And also, and I know this to be true in South Carolina today, it is one of I don't know if I would say many states, but it is one of some states that actually allow voter registration to happen in high schools. And actually, as a part of being in student government, I was not old enough to vote in 1996, but I could participate in voter registration drives in high
Yes.
school. So I do feel like I got a decent amount or good, solid civics education. However, I know that was not true for everyone, and it's still not true for everyone. And as my young son, who's 8 years old, is in school, and I'm kind of looking at social studies, I'm like, what are you learning in social
Hmm.
studies? Are you learning about the branches of
Hmm.
government? Because I think I started learning that in like third grade. I definitely have a side eye. I think we can definitely get better in that. But so thank you for sharing that, because I think that's important for our audience, our listeners, and our young people to just sort of understand where we are in this country, or in where we've been as it pertains to civic education. So, Allyson, this question is for you specifically. Can you share some benefits of civic engagement and civic education too?
Absolutely. Well, I'll start off by just sharing what you talked about at the top of this conversation, which is what young people are advocating for in terms of their own mental, physical, and own emotional security around health. Um, if you're not civically engaged or civically educated, it makes it that much harder to enact change in your community at a local level. So when we think about the benefits of civic engagement, I think about it in a few different ways. There's enhanced civic knowledge. Engaging in actual civic activities helps all people understand the foundation of the democratic processes, the governance, and the importance of participation, which is what's important if we want to see change happen in real time. I also think about building stronger communities. Civic engagement fosters collaboration among community members, leading to stronger, more connecting neighborhoods and locations. And this is actually what we, in the school system, are actually educating our young people through in other classes, whether it's math, literacy, science. We're always talking about how important collaboration is as a 21st century skill.
Right.
Civic engagement and civic education also promotes that. I also think about empowerment. Individuals who engage civically often feel more empowered to influence change and advocate for their needs and those of their community members. And so it's all multi-pronged and complex, but everything's interdependent on one another. And so being able to lean into real world experiences for young people to engage civically creates opportunities for them to see the change that they want to see. And then, of course, from an educational perspective, also thinking about the actual development of critical skills. Civic participation cultivates essential skills such as critical thinking, communication, and problem solving, which are all beneficial both personally, but also professionally. And we're seeing a wave across the country talking about, do young people have to go to traditional universities and colleges? Do they need that elevated career degree to be thriving citizens? And we're seeing more and more data saying no, there are alternative pathways to promote being an active citizen in your community where you can have a good career, whether it's a job or whether it's other financial security. And so that the development of those critical skills is imperative. And then the last thing I'll share is increased voter turnout. We're talking about not just voter turnout for these important presidential elections, but also these really important localized elections where young people need to be engaged citizens. And the best way for them to do that is to support with voter registration drives if they're not of legal age to vote yet, but really being able to participate in the actual political process, contributing to what we're all hoping for at Generation Citizen, which is a healthier democracy. And so I think about the people who may not have had a comprehensive civics education growing up like myself, but I think about the family members that brought me along just to go vote. So being able to go to my local school with my parents and see the impactful experience it was to just sign your name, get your sticker, and actually vote meant something to me. And so there's a number of ways in which we can bring young people into the political process, whether it's signing them up to vote, getting them registered, or giving them other opportunities to practice the problem solving, the collaboration, the communication, and the other critical thinking skills that need to be developed.
No, that is so key. Thank you for dropping those jewels. One of the things that I wanted to just double tap on what you shared, it was also equally important and powerful for me to go like with my parents
Right.
and my grandparents when they were voting. And I have very early childhood memories of that. Schools were usually closed, and I was thinking I could stay in bed and watch cartoons, and they're like, no, 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 no.
Yep.
This is an important
Yeah.
duty. You need to like really understand. So really building that sort of attitude and norm around my civic responsibility certainly was something that was passed down to me at an early age. And so for young people who are listening, like, get
Mhm.
involved. Like, if there are adults in your lives, or even your neighbors, and you see them going out to vote, and just say, hey, can I hang today? Like, I actually want to see what this is all about. It's just a good way to just immerse yourself in this important duty that we have as citizens in this country. The second thing, though, and Damari, I'm going to get to you because I have a question specific for you, just given your work. But a lot of young people, especially adolescents that we work with, they're like, I want to see this change for my health
Right.
or for my education experience. How do I make that happen? And you said something very key, the local level,
Yes.
right? So we also have to equally pay attention to those elections. And when I say local, I'm even talking about your school board. And so for young people, what I want you to do, here's one sort of post work I want you to do. I want you to look up your school board
Yes.
and see if they have a student representative on your school board. And that could be, if they do, great, learn about what's the process for being that student representative. If they don't, then write your school board and
Yes.
ask why they don't have your
Yes.
voices center, because all of this is in service of you and your education. So that's just my one tidbit. All right, but this is for you, Damari, as we're talking about education. With the election presidential election quickly approaching, what education issues are at stake for young people?
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. There's a lot, of course, at stake and a lot of things that we can think about when it comes to education policy, both at the federal, state, and local level. And at America Forward, we focus mainly on the federal level, but we also track state and local education policy as well, because we know that that has a big impact on the way that students show up in schools and the things that they need to thrive. So one of the things we've been seeing more recently, and you've noticed this both pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, is the need for whole learner supports in education. So a whole learner approach that will not only think about the academic things that students need to thrive, but the physical, cognitive, creative things that they need to be lifelong learners, to contribute to society in the ways that they deem impactful, and to impact their communities in the ways that they would like to see change happen. So one of the things that we've been doing at America Forward is working with Congress to hopefully introduce and pass the Whole Learner Act, which would implement creative transformative school systems in local education agencies across the US. It'd be a pilot program that we would use to then test these whole learner approaches. And it's very unique in that it embodies that spirit of collaboration that Allyson mentioned, because it requires the local education agencies to select schools and then partner with nonprofits, community-based organizations that know what the communities need and will be able to implement the supports and services that students need to thrive. It also includes very important things such as family and school partnerships and professional development and mental health supports to both students and teachers so that they can learn how to implement these whole learner approaches and so that they'll be able to receive the mental health supports that they need. Also, building on that, one of the things that we've seen so far is the youth mental health crisis, which I'm sure
Mhm.
Peer Health Exchange is very well aware of. Um, we noticed that especially after the pandemic, with the isolation that people experience and the learning loss, that youth mental health kind of took a decline. We've seen an increase in school shootings. We've seen an increase in different types of rates, especially among Black and Brown students that need to be addressed.
Mm.
So we're very grateful that we were able to launch the Youth Mental Health Corps in partnership with AmeriCorps, Pinterest, and the Shoals Family Foundation, which would allow states to plan to implement different parts of the Youth Mental Health Corps in their states. And then for those states that already have a good robust system in place to address youth mental health, giving them some funding and resources to increase that access across their school districts, across the schools, across the systems, so that they'll be able to make sure that they're able to address the mental health needs of their students. And of course, we always encourage Congress to fully fund AmeriCorps and to implement national service opportunities across the U.S. so that organizations such as Peer Health Exchange and Generation Citizen can continue to expand their offerings to students and allow them to participate in the civic engagement that they want to participate in.
Amazing. Thank you all. Thank you both for sharing all of that. And then before we turn to our youth questions, Allyson, heard about Vote 16 USA. Can you tell us what is that all about?
Absolutely. So we're talking about young people wanting to get engaged. This is an exact opportunity for you to start getting engaged right now. Vote 16 is a movement advocating for actually lowering the voting age to 16 in various elections, including local, state, and even national levels. At 16, individuals are already engaged in society, whether it's a part-time job, driving, babysitting, paying taxes. Lowering the voting age allows them to have a say in decisions that are impacting their daily lives. So we're talking about the policies that Damari was just already talking about. So studies actually show that 16 and 17-year-olds are equally, if not more, informed about political issues as older first-time voters. So they often have the benefit of being engaged in civics education in school, making them well prepared to cast an informed vote. So Vote 16 is all about engaging young people earlier in the actual voting process, which can establish lifelong voting habits. Evidence from jurisdictions actually show that 16 and 17-year-olds often vote at higher rates than even 18 to 24-year-olds. So our youth that are watching and listening right now, let's get on it. We've got a mission to lean into. And so whether it's climate change, whether it's advocating for mental health or physical health services in a community or in your school, or even going as far as social justice, young people have been at the forefront of every major movement in this country and globally. So lowering the voting age actually empowers these activists to not only advocate, but also influence policy, which is what we're seeing needs to actually change. And so vote16usa.org is the website right there to see which states actually are activated right now under this initiative. But it is a spinoff, or will be a spinoff, of Generation Citizen. And so GC is at the forefront of all of these important conversations.
That is so powerful, and that is so critical. So Vote 16 USA, y'all. Vote16usa.org. Please check that out. And I do believe across the country, there are places, or like school districts, for example, where students actually get to vote for their school district. So there is already precedence. And if we think about like important movements in this country, young people were at the forefront. So it all makes sense to me. So yeah, so definitely check out vote16usa.org. Okay, so young people, we have some questions that were submitted by young people. And so we picked the two that seemed like we got a lot of feedback around. And the first one is related to what you just shared, which is, how can I, as a young person, make an impact on local issues if I'm not old enough to vote yet?
Such a good question. And there are a few ways. I'll name a few, and then let my partner here, Damari, lean in as well. But if something's not happening at your school community where you can't vote, start or join a club. Create or participate in a school club that's actually focused on elevating the importance of civic engagement or social issues. This can be a platform, whether it's organizing activities or raising awareness, but here's where you'll be able to lean into collaboration. Who are the folks in your community at the school level who want to support you in your initiatives? And then seeking out one or two active teachers who want to also elevate youth voice. They're going to be your champions. Start or join a club. You can also participate in community meetings. I think when we think about the local level, that information is not openly sourced sometimes or easily accessible. But what I've also been really looking into and learning is, what are the ways in which young people can actually participate in real town local meetings, whether it's a town hall, community forums where local issues are discussed. young people can attend those. It's not bound by age. I was actually recently at a zoning board meeting for my own town advocating for some change that I want to see, or to stop some change. And there was a young person actually speaking about how they didn't want a particular building being built down the street from an elementary school. And so this is a great way in real time for you to learn more about your voice and your options, but also getting your presence known in your community. And then the last thing I'll share is engage in advocacy. Reach out to the local leaders and express your views on issues that matter to you. Whether it's writing a letter, sending an email, you can even meet with these officials to share your perspective. And that's also why the community meetings and town halls are really important for you to know about. And again, it's not bound by age. So being able to attend these spaces where you're going to actually meet these local officials is important, because they will see you. And trust and believe, they do not forget when a young person shows up. They may forget when that middle-aged female shows up and is loud and proud, but they're not going to forget that young person who said, I don't like that this is happening, or I have a better idea instead. And so really being able to engage at the local level provides opportunities, whether it's in your school or your town or your community or your state, for your voice to be heard. And it is a real way for you to actually ensure that your voice is being heard, which may not happen because you're not able to legally vote just yet.
That's amazing. Damari, anything you would add?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to encourage our young people to get involved locally with their local elections, even if they cannot vote. Like you mentioned, they can, excuse me, volunteer for different polling opportunities and volunteer to assist with voter registration and things of that nature. So that's one way that they can get engaged. Another way that they can get engaged as well is to maybe start their own nonprofit or community-based organization that is focused on helping the community members that they want to serve thrive. And again, New Profit is here to support and uplift those community-based organizations that are ready and willing to serve their community in the ways that they deem effective. Another way that they can get involved as well is to just be open to sharing your story with whoever asks. Even at the federal level, we've discovered that bringing in people who are proximate to the issue, such as teachers and students, they resonate really well with policymakers, and they're very ready to hear their stories because they can give them instances of how that policy will impact the schools in real time. And they're also able to share like their experiences with how certain policies have affected them and different improvements that may be helpful based on their experience as practitioners and as students. So always be willing to share your story, and just make sure that you engage with your local elections and continue to, empower your communities in the best way that you know how.
That is amazing. I mean, you both shared some ideas that I didn't even think about doing, but it's so amazing. The only other thing that I would just reinforce to young people, what you heard these two leaders basically say is that you do have power and your voice matters, okay? So you have power and your voice matters. And also, I want you to understand, yes, I know sometimes it feels like adults are not listening to you, but you got at least three of us that are basically saying, we need you. We need to hear from you. So also the other, I guess, added to the list, I would suggest if you're starting your own organization, as Damari suggested, your own nonprofit, or your club in your school, as Allyson suggested, I would say find your adult advocate or co-conspirator as well, because there are adults that believe in the power of you and your voice. They are there. And so that would be the other thing that I would add. Okay, so with the 2 minutes we have, I think we can get this one in. We have one more question from our young people, and it is, what are some ways you can use social media effectively for civic engagement?
This is it for young people. This is the way in which you can effectively engage and advocate for more civic engagement and civic educational opportunities. It's what Damari just said. Share your personal stories. You all know better than we do how to use social media to get attention. Let's do it in a way that's actually going to hone in on the issues that matter to you. So encourage others to connect with the issues on a more personal level by sharing your own experiences related to civic topics or any other issue that is important to you. And know that there are organizations that will support you in doing this. Generation Citizen has a plethora of resources, from our Rise Vote 2024 toolkit to actual short mini lessons called Take Action that teachers and other folks can use in the classroom, where it's actually giving you the skills and tools that you need to share your personal stories. The other thing I would say is engage with the decision makers. Tag those local officials and representatives in posts to raise awareness about the issues. Politicians often don't pay attention to public sentiment when it's when it's not expressed online. So lean into these new platforms that, again, young people, you know how to use these better than us. So get the decision makers involved and tag them directly. They will pay attention.
Yes, wholeheartedly agree. And the only thing I would add to that is you are stronger together. So
Yes.
make sure you collaborate with each other as you're doing those bits of activism, those outreach. Make sure you are connecting with other people who are either from the same communities as you or who are from similar communities or who have similar stories to tell and believe in the same things that you do. If you band together and you share those in a collective way, it'll have a lot more impact and a lot more effectiveness to reaching out to those policymakers than if you do it by yourself. So if you are doing stuff by yourself and you feel discouraged, don't be discouraged. Just make sure to connect with other like-minded people and get the word out and encourage other people to vote as well and just keep engaging civically as best as you can.
Well, Damari, those are some powerful words to leave us with. Don't be discouraged, young people. Your voice matters. You have power. You have expertise that are unique to you, and you can use them to make change. Thank you both, Allyson and Damari, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And thank you for all the work that you do to uplift young people and their voices and their concerns. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time, thank you both. I
Thank you.
Thank you
appreciate
so
you.
much.
Thanks for your health exchange.
Yes, we enjoy
Awesome.
having you both as part of the America Forward
Yes,
Coalition.
we love
We
it.
love it
We
too.
love it.
So, thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.